We have discussed political as well as economic factors for the revolt of 1857. Next comes socio-religious factor. Now, what were the socio-religious factors which led to the revolt of 1857? First, passage of Religious Disabilities Act 1856. Now, what is Religious Disability Act 1856? Although this act was brought to promote equality, how did it promote equality? It allowed Hindus, Muslims as well as Sikh to occupy higher position in the government. But there was a catch. This act also allowed Hindus who have converted into Christianity that they can inherit their father's property. So this was against the religious nature of the Hindus. Second, advent of Christian missionaries in India. We all know Charter Act of 1813. Charter Act of 1813 allowed the advent of Christian missionaries in India to preach Christianity. They tried to convert people belonging to Hinduism, Islam or Sikhism to Christianity. Another factor, superiority complex among the British. We all know the Europeans or the Westerners considered India as a civilizing mission or white man's burden. So we must know civilizing mission or white man's burden. So they had a racial superiority complex against the Indians. The last factor, socio-religious reform. What are we discussing? We are discussing different factors which led to the revolt of 1857. Last factor, socio-religious reforms consist of abolition of sati system, with passage of widow remarriage bill as well as promotion of women education. Now, in sati system we all know which Indian social reformer played an important part. Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Now, who helped Raja Ram Mohan Roy in the abolition of sati system? British Governor General William Bentinck. When was sati system abolished? First time abolished in Bengal in 1829. In other presidencies of Madras and Bombay in 1830. Clear? Now, we have studied in the earlier video, widow remarriage bill was brought by Lord Dalhousie, although it was passed by Lord Canning. So we must all know widow remarriage bill brought under Dalhousie, passed under Lord Canning. Which Indian social reformer helped in the passage of widow remarriage bill? Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. Please keep in mind Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. Now, last, women education. Promotion of women education was against the orthodox nature of the Indians. Now, in 1849, first Indian women's school was formed. What was the name of the school? Bethune School, which later became college. Who founded this school? Founded by J.E.D. Bethune. Now, in the earlier video, we have discussed that in 1854, under Lord Dalhousie, Wood's Dispatch was formed, which was considered as Magna Carta of India. So we can say all these factors contributed in the revolt of 1857. Next factor is administrative factors. Now, what was the administrative reason for the revolt of 1857? We can say rampant corruption among East India Company officials. Now, in the earlier video, we have studied that one of the reasons for the Battle of Plassey was the misuse of trade privilege by the East India Company officials. That trade privilege was known as Dastak. Even after the enactment of Charter Act of 1793, 1813, 1833, as well as Regulating Act of 1773 and Pitt's India Act of 1784, corruption prevailed among the East India Company officials. First reason. Second administrative reason, when the British came to India, it provided an alien or a foreign look. The Indians could not associate themselves with the British. So these were the two administrative factors for the revolt of 1857. After discussing the administrative factor, let's discuss the military factor for the revolt of 1857. Now, what are the military factors? First, General Service Enlistment Act 1856. Now, who passed this act? It was passed by Lord Canning. It was passed by Lord Canning. Now, we must know he was the last Governor General as well as first Viceroy of India. Lord Canning, last Governor General and first Viceroy. Now, what does this act talks about? According to General Service Enlistment Act 1856, Indian soldiers serving in Bengal army has to serve any parts of the world. Now, according to Hindus, crossing the sea means loss of caste. So, they were unhappy with the passage of this act. Secondly, Bhatta system. Now, soldiers of Bengal army, they were paid extra foreign service allowance. Where? For serving in Punjab, for serving in Sindh. It was stopped. This also caused resentment among the members of Bengal army. Third, as we know, Charter Act of 1813 allowed the Christian missionaries to come and preach or convert Christianity in India. So they started conversion activities among the Bengal army soldiers. This also caused resentment. Next factor comes the annexation of Awadh. Now what does this contains? We know that under doctrine of lapse passed by Lord Dalhousie, 8 Indian states were annexed. In year 1856, Awadh was annexed. Most of the soldiers of Bengal army belonged to the Awadh. So this caused resentment among the soldiers. We can also talk about the soldiers as they were peasants in uniform. They were nothing but peasants in uniform. Earlier they were agriculturalists. Now they are serving as soldiers in Bengal army. The last factor or military factor is mutiny in the army. Now, there were several mutiny in the army before final mutiny of 1857. Those were Vellore mutiny of 1806 and Barakpur mutiny of 1825. We also know that before the revolt of 1857, led by the members of 3rd Native Cavalry, some mutiny took place like by 19th Native Infantry, 34th Native Infantry, of which Mangal Pandey was part, and also 7th Awadh Regiment. So these were the different military factors which led to the revolt of 1857. Our last factors are the events in which British has fought wars with different actors. What are those wars? Anglo-Afghan War, Anglo-Sikh War and Crimean War. Now first Anglo-Afghan War was fought in the year between 1838 to 1842. This war was fought by then Governor General Lord Auckland. Please note, this is very important for exam. Now Lord Auckland, he followed a forward policy. Name of the policy was forward policy. Later, after the failure of British or defeat of British in Anglo-Afghan War, Lord Auckland was replaced by Lord Ellenborough. Lord Ellenborough. Next comes the Anglo-Sikh War. And what is the time period for Anglo-Sikh War? It was between 1845 to 49. Next comes the Crimean War. Now, Crimean War time period is between 1854 to 56. Against whom this war was fought? It was fought on Britain, France, Turkey, Sardinia on one side against Russia. This war resulted in heavy losses for the British. Now, all these wars led the realization that British can be defeated. East India Company can be overthrown from India, ultimately led to the revolt of 1857. So we have discussed all the factors which led to the revolt of 1857, namely political, economic, socio-religious, administrative, military and other factors.